Okay, so, well, this is the, what we're going to call, this is the, well, this is kind of hard to say. Welcome to, or this is this podcast takes tokens.
There you go.
This is the name I came up with.
Yeah,
I was pretty happy with it. I went
I like
through
it.
several iterations. I will happily go through some of the other names with you if you'd like.
Oh yeah, let's hear them.
But so yeah, but let me start out by saying, this token, this podcast takes tokens. That's going to be a mouthful. I can already tell.
Yeah,
I'm Derek, and I had this idea for this podcast a while back, but I just didn't know how I wanted to go about making it, and I couldn't really see myself talking ad nauseum by myself about these things that I like to an audience of nobody that's giving me no feedback immediately. But a while back, recently, I was in my hometown visiting with my brother, and we're having a conversation, and it was a really great conversation. And I remember that seed being planted of this is what it should be like. And on my drive home, in my head, I just mapped out this whole podcast idea of where I wanted to go with it, what I wanted to do with it, and who I wanted my co-host to be. So I'm plugging in controller 2. He's not playing in ghost mode anymore. He's all grown up. I'm doing this podcast with my brother Ryan. Ryan, why don't
how's it
you
going?
introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm Ryan, and yeah, there's just a lot of things that I'm a nostalgic guy. Um,
I
I
think we both are.
yeah, I'll see something, flipping through Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is, and either it's a sound or it's a clip from a movie or something, whatever, that it I'm a very nostalgic guy, and yeah, like you were saying, when we were been seeing each other more often now, and we've been having these conversations, and when you approached me about doing this podcast, yeah, I'm just thinking like, yeah, this is something I'm I want to do, because
Yeah.
I think the thing about you know how nostalgia and our memories, just these things that we enjoyed, whether it's a movie or reading a book or going off like years ago when we would go shoot fireworks off at our aunt's house.
Yes.
Like I think about those things, and like when I'm at a fireworks shop, I'll smell the fireworks and it takes me back. Like those things that are nostalgic, they take me back to those memories, and you can kind of time travel, I guess, a little bit. You can kind of relive those, and yeah, I'm excited to just dive into different things that we've enjoyed over the years, and relive them, but also I'm betting there's going to be some stuff that we find that we're like, wow, I can't believe I liked that. Like, because as you get older, your tastes change a little bit, but you still
Yeah.
have those memories of, yeah, it's a little silly now, whatever it is, but I liked it back then. And I remember, doing this with my friends while we were, playing with this toy or whatever it is.
Yeah, there's a
So,
few things on the list I got that I'm worried about because I
yeah.
cherish those childhood memories and I don't want to taint it
Yes.
as an adult.
Yes.
I'm afraid to
Yep.
go back and ruin it.
I know. So,
Well, yeah. So Ryan, you're my brother. My as I can say because it's true. You are my brother from another mother.
yes.
We grew up together, but not together.
Right.
We have the same father, but different mothers. You grew up back home. I moved down. My mom moved us down to Texas. I think before you were born, or right after,
I
right around
think
the same
so.
time.
Yeah.
So our whole life we've had a few states between us. But
Yep.
I'd come back and visit in the summers, and we get to hang out, run around town, and do all these things that we're going to talk about over
Yeah.
the course of this podcast. And well, now we're here. Now we're together. Yeah. So as far as what we're hoping to do with this podcast is, well, like you were saying, we want to explore some of those things that from our childhood that brought us nostalgia. So not only are we going to explore movies and games, but where we plan to explore comic books and toys and the feeling of 4th of July and Christmas and all the things from being a child that bring back those special memories. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could really listen to this and know that it's not necessarily a podcast about stuff.
Yeah.
It's about how those things made us feel and the memories we
It's
have.
about our stuff.
So
It's
yeah,
about our memories.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
This is us. This is, I mean, like I said, we're several states apart, but this is just us hanging out and having these
Yeah.
conversations and continuing these conversations that we don't get to have as often anymore now.
Sure.
We really haven't for probably the past 20 years. And, but now we get to kind of catch up more and do this more, which is just going to
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah.
So you mentioned 4th of July at our aunt's house, and that reminded me that was one of the ideas that I was working for as far as a name, is trying to figure out if it could somehow be, and I couldn't think of a way to phrase it that didn't, it just sounded off to call it in my aunt's basement with my brother. And there was
Yeah.
no way for me to phrase it to turn it the right way.
To
So I
not
ditched that
sound a
one
little
pretty
bit
soon.
creepy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it just sounded wrong. Like anytime you put
Yeah.
basement in the title, it just didn't sound right.
You're right.
So I skipped that one. But that's where my head was at, is I was trying to come up with something that was like that invoked that idea of us just hanging
Sure.
out again as kids.
Yes.
But I'll go through some of the names I had originally if
Yeah.
you'll humor me.
I'll humor you a little
So
bit. Yeah.
I'll run down the list and we'll end on what we're at now. So I had Retro Rental, which whenever I did see now, let me preface this by saying, not only did I come up with these names, but I researched them just a little bit, and I kind of looked up how searchable they are and if they're taken, if anything kind of like it is taken. Retro Rentals was a red. It was out on the first search
Really? Okay.
because I
see that.
Google searched it and it came up a lot.
Yeah.
But it came up not for podcasts necessarily or even blogs, because whenever I searched it as a blog, I got less hits. But whenever I just searched it, it came up a lot. But mostly like boat rentals, RV rentals,
Oh,
and things
really?
like that.
See, I would think of it like as, maybe some store that's got, old
Arcade
vintage
rentals.
like NES games and VHSs and stuff like that,
Yeah, that's what I would think. Yeah, but no,
Yeah.
I didn't find one like that. There might be one. It didn't come up in my searches.
Yeah. Yeah.
No podcast under that name though, so that was
Okay.
good. But like I said, it was out there too much. There was an Instagram, a YouTube, and a TikTok page for it.
Okay.
There was no Spotify for it though, but I skipped it. Like I said, there was too many flags. Millennial Memoirs was the next one that I came up with that I thought was kind of nice, but I wasn't in love with memoirs. Memoirs
Yeah.
felt it didn't hit right for me.
Yeah.
But I like
It's a little,
the M and M, like the
yeah.
monogram of it. I like that. It
Yeah.
was easy. That made for good logo play. And that's another way I was thinking about it. But, there wasn't much on the search. Wasn't much when I searched for blogs or podcasts. Nothing came up. But there was an Instagram, a YouTube, and a TikTok. So somebody's got that name for a blog of some sort.
Uh-huh.
But we skipped over that one. And then I kind of went into this. I was playing around with the idea of streetlight and downhill racing. I mean, you remember as a kid,
Oh, yeah.
streetlights come on, that's time to come
Yep.
home.
Yep.
And racing down that hill back at the old house.
Yes.
That was the thing.
That was.
So I had streetlight kids and I had downhill racers.
I like those.
But I liked them too. But I think other people did too, because there's a clothing
yes.
line called Streetlight Kids. I was
Really?
not aware of. Yeah,
A clothing line.
a clothing line. So all the social tags are gone on that one because of it. So I just nixed that one. And downhill racers, there was a movie apparently with Robert Redford, I want to say, from the
Okay.
'60s called Downhill Racer.
Okay.
So I
It
didn't want
sounds
any
to me like
confusion
it
there.
would be like, you remember that, was it that movie Airborne? Those guys that are on like rollerblades.
No.
Okay. Anyway, well, they're
That
like
might be.
the end of the movie. They're racing down this huge hill on these rollerblades. Anyway, that's what I thought of. But I guess Robert Redford's probably not starring in that movie.
No.
So,
No, it was a '60s racing movie. I
okay.
guess I didn't
Okay.
look into it too heavily.
Well,
Yeah, so yeah, I figured I didn't want any. I didn't want it. I didn't want it to seem like we were doing a podcast about this movie, so
yeah.
I skipped that one. Arcade Rental was another one that
Nice.
I really liked, but that one was taken not as a podcast, but there was a blog and there was a
Oh, I'm
bunch of
sure.
hits
Yeah.
online. Rewind, Respawn. So Rewind. These next few, I asked ChatGPT for some ideas based on what we're going through. And so ChatGPT gave me Rewind, Respawn. Well, actually, it gave me about 40 of them. I picked these as my top ones. Rewind, Respawn, Rewind, and Respawn, which wasn't specifically taken, but versions of that were taken.
Okay.
Too many for me to use. Generation Respawn, which is kind of in the same vein.
Hmm.
Joysticks and remotes. Then Millennial
Interesting.
Memoirs, the Generation Rental, which I like
Wow.
Generation Rental, but that was
Yes.
taken too. Generation Rental was one of my top threes that I really liked,
Okay.
but it was taken
So,
too much.
so it was the Millennial Memoirs Generation Rental was the whole thing, or was it two
Yeah,
different?
it was Millennial
Wow.
Memoirs Generation Rental, which I kind of
That's
like the idea of doing it kind of like that, like
yeah.
giving it kind of two names. But then I thought, nah, that's just you got to keep it simple, like keep it down
That's
to
a
like two or three
mouthful.
words. Yeah,
Can you imagine trying to, introduce that every
yeah,
episode?
it's a lot. I know,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if I should pare mine back already, but
Yeah.
so then I had 1 day, or I'm sorry, 2 day return,
Okay.
which kind of play on movie stores, but you can imagine various versions of that were taken. There was 1 day return, there was 1 day rental, 2 day rental. Everything around it was already taken, so we skipped over that. 1 hour retro, but I thought, well, this isn't really going to be an hour long podcast. This may be a half hour, maybe 45 minutes. It could go an hour. We'll never know. Well, we will eventually, but we don't know
Yeah,
right now.
sure.
So I didn't want to lock us into that. 1 token per play was my number two. I liked
Yeah,
one
I like
token
it.
per play. And we could go back to that, but 1 token per play was where I was. That was competing. 1 token respawn. I was trying to play with what Chappy GPT was giving me, as well as Generation Joystick, but Generation Joystick had too much around it. And then there was 1 coin per, which is just shortening, taking 1 token per play and kind of shortening it up a little bit.
Hmm.
And you got 1 coin per because 1 token per was actually taken, but so
Okay.
that's too close. So it came down to 1 token per play, and this podcast takes tokens.
I
And
like what we're
so
going with. Like, I like the other,
yeah,
but the other this seems a little more unique, I guess.
yeah,
The other seems, as much as I like it, it does seem a little more generic.
yeah,
So, yeah, I like it.
yeah. I like it. And then so I had to run it by the boss, and she liked this podcast takes tokens. So
Hmm.
here we are. This podcast takes tokens.
Good choice.
Yeah. So that's the history of the name for anybody who's interested down the line. As far as like what we're going to cover movies, we're going to cover games, probably mostly movies and games, honestly. That was our childhood, movies and
That was
games.
what we did. So,
That's right.
yeah. Other than
Toys.
like it was playing games, watching movies, and we walked to the comic shop.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the video store or the
Yes.
movie,
Yes. Yep. Yep.
maybe the library. But yeah, so those will be our categories. Now, I did have an idea. I've only got one so far. But this is where you're going to probably feed me some things. And maybe
Okay.
I'll feed you some things here too, because we haven't gone over the entire list of everything I have, all the episode ideas that I have. But one of the categories that doesn't fit into that very specific game, movie, music, whatever, is how did I miss this? And that's where, like, my example, and this is an episode that's probably a dozen out. Like, this isn't anything that's going to come up anytime soon, but within the next couple months, probably, is I've never seen Blazing Saddles. So I
You're
thought
kidding.
that would be a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna watch it for the first time, and
Yeah.
then you can rewatch it, and then we'll talk
Okay.
about it. So
Okay.
we'll have like your nostalgic eyes and my fresh adult eyes.
Okay. Okay.
So that'll be
Yeah.
kind of
Now
fun.
I will say, my nostalgic eyes might be uh, a little newer because I think I watched it like maybe 5 years ago. So
Okay. Yeah.
when I
So how
say
did you
you're
miss it
kidding
too?
me, I'm a little bit, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's fine. So then we can both
yeah,
play it. But there's like
yeah,
there's ones like
yeah,
that I've never seen, like movies or games or whatever that just completely
yeah,
pass me by.
yeah.
But everybody else seems to know. So I'll put that on there. And actually, that I should preface that by saying the the original kernel for the idea of this podcast was actually a blog that I was planning like 5 years ago.
Okay.
I got into this conversation with somebody on, I think, Reddit or something like that. We went back and forth. They listed the top 5 movies of all time. And it was a list straight out of a film school. Can you guess what number 1 was?
I want to say Citizen Kane, but I bet it wasn't.
Citizen Kane. It's the
Was it
number
really?
one movie on.
Okay.
It's the
Okay.
number one movie on
Yeah.
everybody's list
Yeah.
whenever they say top definitive top 5 movies of the movie or whatever. Well, I've never seen the movie, and
No,
so
I have
but
not either.
I'm like I have no interest in seeing it. It doesn't seem
No.
interesting to me. I can't imagine that's the greatest movie of all time.
No.
So my thought was I'm gonna start a blog where I watch movies that I've never seen before, but everybody says is so great, and then give my perspective on that. And then
Yeah.
that evolved over the years into like, well, maybe it'll be a better podcast, or maybe I could do like a YouTube series or whatever. And then
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah.
But that was the initial kernel that
Yeah.
spawned
Yeah.
all of this.
Yeah.
But
I had one because I kind of thrown around this idea of a blog as well a while back. I only did one entry. No, maybe I.
oh yeah,
No, I didn't do one entry. I did 2 different blogs because I tried this twice, and it was one entry each time. And the first one was just about, I think it was like the anniversary or something of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and I
okay,
did some whole blog post on that about how it reminded me of our aunt and just different things. And I just, like I said, just one post, and then here a couple of years ago, when we went and did we went on vacation. Um, I had some nostalgia from that, and just going on different vacations and things that we did that reminded me of when we were in the same area when I was younger, and started a blog when I got back. Did one post, and that was it. Because it's hard, like you're saying, it's hard when
yeah,
it's just you
it's just you,
just
yeah.
spitting stuff
You don't have
out.
that
You need
feedback.
somebody else to bounce things off of. So
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. Yeah, all right. So I think well, we'll give a little tease here as far as what we got coming up. Our first, let's say, 5 episodes, right?
sure.
So, episode number 1, we're going to start off with the original, the classic, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie. We came across this VHS. You have the original your original VHS copy. We came across it when
Yes.
we were at our dad's house a couple weeks
Yes.
back, and I was like, "That's got to be episode number 1 right
Oh
there."
yeah.
Is that original movie because
Yes.
we have such fond memories from that movie. So that'll be our
Yes.
number 1 episode. Number 2, we're gonna go and we're gonna do Zelda, the original Zelda, The Legend of Zelda. What's the full title on that? Is it just The
That's
Legend of
it. The
Zelda?
Legend
Is
of
it just
Zelda, and on
I
NES.
felt like
Yeah.
Link was in there somewhere. Yeah,
No,
original
the
Zelda.
second
Yeah.
one was The Adventures of
Link.
Link, or The Adventure of
That's
Link, or
right. Yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, Link got they got the short end on that first one.
he did. Everyone thought he was
All
Zelda.
right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. We all thought he was
It
Zelda for
is.
the longest
Yes.
time.
Yes. Yep.
Nobody bothered to read the manual.
No.
Yeah, so episode 2, we're gonna do Zelda, The Legend of Zelda. Episode 3, we're gonna do some music. So we'll do our picks for songs that define the 80s to us, that remind us of the 80s the most, or define it for us the most. And then we're gonna compare our lists. We're gonna pick out, I don't know, what do you think, 3 or 5 songs, and then we're gonna
Yeah,
talk about, I
something
think
like
5.
that. Yeah.
5 would probably be a good round number.
5 would be a nice round number. Yeah.
Yeah, that should give us plenty. And then, so we'll talk about our top 5 songs from the 80s, and we'll compare our lists, and maybe they'll match, maybe they won't. Maybe we'll have some that match. Who knows? We'll see. So what is that? Number 3?
Yes.
Number 4 is going to be Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters.
Yes.
That's another one that's just steeped in childhood
Yeah.
and nostalgia, and you
Yes.
know I got the biggest Ghostbusters fan in my house right
Oh
now.
yes. Oh yes. He may be
That'll be
begging
fun.
to be on this podcast.
He may be. He may very well be. Number 5. I don't know. Do you got a good idea for number 5? Something you'd want to cover?
Oh man, just on the spot like that, no, not really. Something we might have to think about. I don't know yet. I'm sure something will come to me, but I'm a guy that needs to I need to sit down and think. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna leave number 5 to you. You think about it, and
Okay.
you can reveal it to me on one of our future episodes here.
It'll be a mystery right now.
That's right. We'll leave it as a mystery. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So that's our first 5. We're doing Ninja Turtles as number 1, and originally planning this, as I was telling Ryan here when I first brought this up to him, the first 5 episodes were going to be all turtles. And I thought, it's awesome. We'll establish what kind of podcast we're going to do. The movie, we're going to do the video game, we're going to do the TV show, we're going to do the toys. And I got to think about it, and I was like, oh no, we don't want to be a Turtles podcast. I mean, turtles are great, but we can't let that define the entire thing. So
And my daughter would love it.
So they're yeah, she would. We will cover those things. They will come up, but we're going to sprinkle that in over time. We're not going to necessarily get to it all right away. And this goes the same for most of these things. Like, eventually we're going to do Back to the Future. As a matter of fact, I think we have to do Back to the Future 1 for Back to the Future Day. Like, we're just going to call that shot right now.
Yes.
Early October is going to be Back to the Future 1.
Let's do it.
That's happening. But then, like 2 and 3, it's not like we're going to bang those out right away. We'll come back to those. We're going to savor that.
But it's so hard for me. It's like, what's your favorite Back to the Future movie? I don't know. Like, can I say all 3 of them?
I know. Most people, I gotta. I'm gonna save my rant for when we get to it. But most people give Back to the Future 3 a lot of hell, and I gotta say I like it. I like Back to the Future 3.
It's good.
But
it's all
good. We'll come back to that. All right, so that's who we are. That's what we're going to do. This is episode 0. This is kind of a nothing episode. This is just kind of for us to set those parameters a little bit. And I think we're just going to jump right over to episode 1. What do you say?
Sounds good. I'll see you there.
All right. See you there.